Hello, Davis Dragons. My name is Mr. Durand, and I get the pleasure of reading to you the final three chapters of one of my favorite books, The Tale of Despereaux by Kate Dicamillo, and illustrated by Timothy Basil Earing. So, the much anticipated last three chapters of The Tale of Despereaux. Chapter 50, in which the princess says his name. "Princess!" Despereaux shouted. "Princess, I have come to save you." The Princess P heard her name. She looked up. "Despereaux," she whispered. And then she shouted it. "Despereaux!" Reader, nothing is sweeter in this sad world than the sound of someone you love calling your name. Nothing. For Despereaux, the sound was worth everything. His lost tail, his trip to the dungeon, and back out of it and back into it again. He ran toward the princess, but Rescuro, baring his teeth, blocked the mouse's way. The princess cried, "Oh, no! Rat, please don't hurt him. He is my friend." Mig said, "Don't worry, princess. I will save the Misi." She took the kitchen knife. She aimed it to cut off the rat's head, but she missed her mark. "Whoopsie," said Miggery Sow. Chapter 50. What is that smell? The picture. "Ow!" screamed Rescuro. He turned to look at where his tail had been, and as he did, Despereaux drew his needle and placed the sharp tip in the right where the rat's heart should be. "Don't move," said Despereaux. "I will kill you." "Ha ha ha!" Botticelli laughed from his sidelines. "Exactly." He slapped his tail on the floor in approval. "Absolutely delightful. A mouse is going to kill a rat. Oh, all of this is much better than I anticipated. I love it when mice come to the dungeon." Again, here's the picture. "Let me see," said the other rats, pushing and shoving. "Stand back," Botticelli told them, still laughing. "Let the mouse do his work." Despereaux held the trembling needle against Rescuro's heart. The mouse knew that as a knight it was his duty to protect the princess. But would killing the rat really make the darkness go away? Despereaux bowed his head ever so slightly, and as he did, so his whiskers brushed against the rat's nose. Rescuro sniffed. "What is that smell?" he asked. "Mousy blood," shouted one rat. "Blood and bone," shouted another. "You're smelling tears," said Botticelli. "Tears and thwarted love." "Exactly," said Rescuro. "And yet there's something else." He sniffed again, and the smell of soup crashed through his soul like a great wave, bringing with it the memory of light, the chandelier, the music, the laughter, everything, all things that were not, would never, could never be available to him as a rat. "Soup," moaned Rescuro, "soup." And he began to cry. "Boo!" shouted Botticelli. "Sss!" hissed the other rats. "Kill me," said Rescuro. He fell down before Despereaux. "It will never work. All I wanted was some light. That is why I brought the princess here, really, just for some beauty, some light of my own." "Please," shouted Botticelli, "do kill him. He is a miserable excuse for a rat." "No, Despereaux," shouted the princess. "Don't kill him." Despereaux lowered his needle. He turned and looked at the pea. "Boo!" shouted Botticelli again. "Kill him! Kill him!" "All this goodness is making me sick. I've lost my appetite." "Gore!" shouted Mig, waving her knife. "I will kill him." "No, wait," said the princess. "Rescuro," she said to the rat. "What?" he said. Tears were falling out of his eyes and creeping down his whiskers and dripping onto the dungeon floor. And then the princess took a deep breath and put a hand on her heart. I think, reader, that she was feeling the same thing that Despereaux had felt when he was faced with his father begging him for forgiveness. That is, P was aware suddenly of how fragile her heart was, how much darkness was inside it, fighting always with the light. She did not like the rat. She would never like the rat, but she knew what she must do to save her own heart. And so, here are the words that the princess spoke to her enemy. She said, "Rescuro, would you like some soup?" The rat sniffed. "Don't torment me," he said. "I promise you," said the princess. that if you lead us out of here, I will get cook to make you some soup, and you can eat it in the banquet hall." "Speaking of eating," shouted one of the rats, "give us the mousie!" "Yeah," shouted another, "hand over the mouse." "Who would want him now?" said Botticelli. "The flavor of him will be ruined. All that forgiveness and goodness, bleh! I, for one, am leaving." "Soup in the banquet hall?" Resquerot asked the princess. "Yes," said the pea. "Really?" "Truly, I promise." "Gore!" shouted Mig. "Soup is illegal." "But soup is good," said Despereaux. "Yes," said the pea. "Isn't it?" The princess bent down before the mouse. "You are my knight," she said to him with a shining needle, "and I am so glad that you found me. Let's go upstairs. Let's eat some soup." And reader, they did. Chapter 52, the last chapter, Happily Ever After. But the question you want answered, I know, is did they live happily ever after? Yes and no. What of Resquerot? Did he live happily ever after? Well, the Princess Pea gave him free access to the upstairs in the castle, and he was allowed to go back and forth from the darkness of the dungeon to the light of the upstairs. But alas, he never really belonged in either place. The sad fate, I am afraid, of those whose hearts break and then mend in crooked ways. But the rat, in seeking forgiveness, did manage to shed some light, some small light, some happiness into another life. How? Resquerot, reader, told the princess about the prisoner who had once owned a red tablecloth, and the princess saw to it that the prisoner was released. And Resquerot led the man up out of the dungeon and to his daughter, Miggerisau. Mig, as you might have guessed, did not get to be a princess, but her father, to atone for what he had done, treated her like one for the rest of his days. And what of Despereaux? Did he live happily ever after? Well, he did not marry the princess, if that is what you mean by happily ever after. Even in a world as strange as this one, a mouse and a princess cannot marry. But reader, they can be friends. And they were. Together they had many adventures. Those adventures, however, are another story, and this story, I'm afraid, must now draw to a close. But before you leave, reader, imagine this. Imagine an adoring king and a glowing princess, a serving girl with a crown on her head and a rat with a spoon on his, all gathered around a table in a banquet hall. In the middle of the table, there's a great kettle of soup. Sitting in the place of honor, take a look at that kettle of soup. Sitting in the place of honor right next to the princess is a very small mouse with big ears, and peeking out from behind a dusty velvet curtain, there they are off to the side, and peeking out from behind a dusty velvet curtain, looking in amazement at the scene before them, are 4 other mice. "Mon Dieu, look, look," says Antoinette. He lives, and he seems such the happy mouse." "Forgiven," whispers Lester. "Cripes," says Furlough, unbelievable. "Just so," says the threadmaster Hovis, smiling. "Just so." And reader, it is just so, isn't it? The end. Now there's one little page here titled Coda after the final chapter, and it says, "Do you remember when Despereaux was in the dungeon, cupped in Gregory, the jailer's hand, whispering a story in the old man's ear? I would like it very much if you thought of me as a mouse, telling you a story, and this story with the whole of my heart, whispering it in your ear in order to save myself from the darkness, and to save you from the darkness too. Stories are light," Gregory the jailer told Despereaux. Reader, I hope you have found some light here. The end. That concludes The Tale of Despereaux by Kate Dicamillo, one of my favorite books. Again, I hope that you found inspiration here and you found some light in this difficult time. Continue reading stories, Davis Dragons, and if you have an opportunity, take an AR test as well. Cheers.